Hey guys, how's it going? My name is Arden, and today we're going to talk about Empyre Avengers number 1. My streaming software is on. Great. Great time for a car alarm to start going off right into the background of a stream. There we go. So, here's the thing about this book. Up until now, I've quite enjoyed the Empyre event. It hasn't been out of this world amazing, but I haven't hated it, and I've certainly appreciated the value of certain things going on with it. Uh, that being said, well, and the other thing too is like I've really been impressed with the tie-ins so far, and they've been atypical for the sort of tie-ins that I would expect out of a major crossover event from either Marvel or DC. They've been a little more complex and interesting, and not the sort of thing I'd typically expect out of the sort of crossover, like I said. So when it comes to Empyre Avengers number 1, I feel like this book in particular is the most like what I'd expect out of the average tie-in for one of these crossover events. It reminds me a lot of any of those given stories, but in particular Secret Invasion, because that's pretty much the plot of Empyre Avengers. We open up right in the middle of the events discussed or depicted in Empyre the Core series number 2. The Skrulls and Kree are in the middle of engaging in war on Earth's surface with the Gotati. It's a little more fleshed out what it's looking like on Earth's action. Hello, Adrian Bedingfield. Thanks for joining us, and along with everyone else watching right now. And yeah, so we get the Avengers going up against the various forces of the Gotati around Earth. They're very mindful of the fact that the Kree Skrull alliance doesn't really value Earth lives, and if they can't control the Gotati here, they will absolutely burn the planet if need be, as we learned at the end of Empyre number 2, but really should be no surprise for those of us who have seen the Kree and Skrull and other stories in the past. So we get like the Avengers kind of meeting at their headquarters. There's a lot of cool characters in this story, ranging from like we got our Iron Man, Black Panther, Captain America, but we also have Doctor Druid, Black Knight, Kazar, and Scarlet Witch, who we'll talk about in a bit. Out in Manhattan, there's Vision and a real favorite of mine, Dr. Nemesis, who I know from like X-Men comics and stuff, and I used him as the basis of one of the chapters of those Battlelog videos we did way back in the day. I love Dr. Nemesis, and he and Vision meet up with Luke Cage. There's some weird growth going on over this New York water reservoir, and it's Dr. Nemesis determines it's a fungus. Vision uses his powers to go inside the plant growth thing, using his ability to phase through stuff, and he's greeted by this crazy plant creature who just he has the best line. He just goes, "Hello, stupid robot," and it really made me laugh. And then Vision's like, "I think I'm gonna need Luke Cage's help." Meanwhile, Quicksilver, Wonder Man, and Mockingbird are helping out people. Quicksilver's changed. I assume that's some Avengers thing I'm not privy to. But his dialogue's very different than what it normally would be. He's a lot more. He's got a much more deeper and complex vocabulary than I would normally expect out of him, and that clearly seems like some sort of intentional character change. They battle some Gotati, but then cross the Korean Skrulls, who are, pissy and willing to murder the Gotati, which the Avengers are apparently up in arms over, but I side with the Korean Skrull on that particular issue. They're in the middle of a war, and they shouldn't be griping over tactics, especially with these invading plant people who are basically risking all Earth lives right now. I don't know what those Avengers expect out of things. So stuff goes on. Other talk happens. Dr. Druid and a bunch of them head off to the Savage Land, along with Kazar, because he's from there. Scarlet Witch detects they're actually surrounded by Gotati, who are like hiding, and they all attack. But then my favorite part of the book happens, and out of the ground emerges a giant man thing that appears to be working with the Katati or is like controlled with them. The Katati claim that they basically claim the entire Savage Land. They've got power over plants, which is an interesting idea. And Shanna, Khazar's love interest, I don't know that stuff that well, but she's clearly also been corrupted and under control of the Katati, and she greets him menacingly. So, I gotta say, huh? Jay the Prophetic says, no matter who they paid to take the fall for them, you know who they are already. I don't get what you're saying. I'll have to clarify that statement. Anyways, so that's the book. Like you said, it reminds me more of like the typical thing I'd expect out of like a Secret Invasion tie-in, where it's just pretty much the Avengers dealing with an alien invasion force. It's kind of the side of Empyre I started to get worried about following issue 1, where it was revealed the Katati were kind of going to be a big thing. And if this is what the Empyre event is going to be, and it's just going to be this typical alien invasion stuff, I can't say I'm that interested. And this book is a lot more like the kind of sentiment I've gotten out of a lot of you guys, the viewers, where a lot of you guys have seemed more ambivalent towards Empyre, or you viewed it as just another line in a long line of similar Marvel events. Hey, Impulse Thunder says something that I absolutely want to talk about. Okay, sure, we'll do it now. So Impulse Thunder says, it really contradicts with what Hickman's writing in the X-Men tie-in with Wanda's appearance. Now, I had mentally prepared to do a whole little section of my review on this particular point. And I'm glad you brought it up, actually, because I agree strongly. Now, for those of you who watch a lot of videos with us or whatever, I'll just go say it now. I usually tend to give Marvel and DC a lot of leeway for this stuff. Let's take Empyre aside for a moment and talk about like Batman for a second. We can even use Batman right now. Right now, Batman is in the middle of death metal. He's on an alien planet ruling it. In Justice League, in Batman, he's up in the war against the Joker, and we just reviewed how insane that story is, and that'll be available for everyone to watch shortly, or if you're watching this later, immediately. And so, you know, all this stuff's going on. So Batman is, and I'm sure there's more, because I don't know what he's up to in Detective Comics right now, or any given miniseries or whatever. With stories like that are unrelated to each other, I tend to give a big pass, because we're talking about different publication lines, different editors, and yes, ideally they should coordinate some things, especially major things, like when Batman gets a son, for example. All the comics do reflect that change. But little things in day-to-day storylines tend to take a while to take root in other stories, and I'm okay with that, to a degree. But let's bring it back to Empyre now. Now we're talking about what really should be a unified story to a degree. Again, I'm okay if little things contradict each other. Like, this story's got a lot of stuff about Wakanda's invasion. So does the Empyre X-Men #1 book. Yeah, I got it over here too. Because we just reviewed this too. Now in this book, Impulse Thunder says, yeah, exactly. It really shows the writers didn't coordinate with each other. Exactly. So in this book, Scarlet Witch is a huge part of the story, and that's the other problem. She's a big, big part of the story in a way that could change things for the X-Men beyond the scope of Empyre. So her role in this comic is great. I recommended this book. I still do. Hickman is doing some interesting things with this tie-in. And by the way, I've recommended pretty much every Prelude comic and Empyre tie-in so far, which is going to be relevant to my final verdict of this book. But sorry, that's a lot at once. So in that story, Wanda's got this big role. She's got a bunch of stuff going on with Genosha. There's no way she's with the Avengers right now in the context of that story and the Katati invasion. So in this book, that's all about the Katati invasion and Wanda being on the Avengers. They don't even acknowledge that. She's just here and doing stuff. and not like on her way to Genosha. We know from that storyline that Wanda's been heavily involved with something that's been going on for months, as established in that X-Men Empyre book. So, when we're talking about a unified tie-in, there needs to be an editor looking over all of this stuff and making sure there aren't huge plot holes like this. And again, like, I try to be generous. Maybe something's going to happen in Empyre X-Men that will explain Wanda being at the focal point in the invasion in the Avengers story. I would be surprised. I doubt it. I think that they just flubbed this. This story was by Jim Zub. Oh, I missed it. I forgot to talk about who this comic's by. Seems kind of relevant. Jim Zub wrote it. Carlos Magno did the art. Espen Grundegern did the coloring. Corey Petit did the lettering. And Steve McNiven and Mary Hollowell did the cover. And you can see the cover right there. It's his classic artwork. But the rest of the book's got good, relatively good artwork. There are some pages and panels where I felt their detail was lacking. Some of the Panthers, because they're hanging out in Wakanda, I assume, and there's just some Panthers kind of hanging out, sitting around in the background. Oh, the garden, holographic briefing area aboard the Wakandan helicarrier. Cool. But they don't have as much finesse and detail on them as I would kind of prefer. I don't know. In a story like this, I found that, or in the comic, I found the detail wanes a little bit. Sometimes it's really strong, other times it's a little weaker. I would have liked a little more consistency in such an action-heavy comic. So, going back to that thing. Like, Wanda's not a huge part of the story, but that sort of contradiction I can't really defend. Like I said, I can defend it when it's these bigger stories and they're presumably taking place in different time periods, but that doesn't work. There's no explanation for it other than the writer's done messed up, and the editors more accurately. But yeah, King Drago says, sigh, lol. I assume, you can all guess what we're sighing about. Adrian Benningfield was saying, I don't recall if you did the Wonder Woman Dead World review, but I have that coming to me. Yes, we did do it, and I loved it. But I would recommend you check out that review. We had a good time going through those 3 issues, and I basically walked people through the whole comic, and you would enjoy that, Adrian. And I'm pretty sure, even though I did not remember your name, I said some nice things about you recommending it to me. So go check that out. It should be easily looked up on our video. So that bugged me, but didn't really affect my overall opinion of the book, which is not that great. Like I said, it was a pretty standard tie-in, which to me meant that it was pretty inconsequential and pointless. I do have to say, that Man-Thing moment, that was cool. I don't know, like, based on the cover of the next book, he's just going to end up joining with the Avengers or something, but it's neat. The idea of him joining up on the side of the Ikotati is more interesting to me, and that's pretty cool, and I like Jim Zub's writing. The actual dialogue's pretty good and interesting. I wish there was an explanation for like what's going on with Quicksilver, because I don't know, and I'm not obligated to automatically know. But you know, it's cool seeing characters like Wonder Man, Black Knight, and Dr. Nemesis in action. Those are all fun characters we don't ever really get enough of, so that was all great. Tevi was saying, I still don't care about Empyre. These tie-ins seem like cash grabs. So that kind of gets into my final verdict. And honestly, like I said at the beginning of this video, and I know you guys, you're welcome to disagree or whatever, but I have enjoyed Empyre more than the average crossover event thing. I found its stories atypical enough, and right now it's being interesting enough that I've enjoyed the core series and most of the tie-ins. If you go back at all our reviews, like I said earlier, I've recommended every single tie-in and core series thing, which is pretty unusual for me, especially for a major crossover like this. This is the first one I'm not going to recommend. Well, okay, I would recommend it, but under very specific circumstances. So if you haven't read all of the Empyre Prelude comics and tie-ins and core series stuff, I absolutely recommend you start with that stuff. If you've read all of those things and you still want more, this isn't actually a bad book. But if you haven't read any of those things, then I don't like in the context of this larger event, virtually everything I've touched with Empyre was better than this. Like I said, wasn't a bad comic, didn't hate it, competent art, good-ish writing, some issues with the overall canon of Empyre that I think Marvel needs to do better about. And like, cause I've talked a bit about how there's a limit to how much this stuff matters, but when Scarlet Witch is such an essential part of one story, it feels cheap for her to be like on the cover of this thing and not a meaningful part of the story. Oh, you guys are, I'm losing track of things. Uh, okay, I'll just go in order. Adrian Benningfield also said that I'm waiting for the Venom event. Yeah, I've reviewed the last Venom comic that came out, and I really liked it, but it also clearly is hinting at some sort of bigger confrontation with Null, and I'm glad they spaced it out because this stuff with Venom is so cool. I bet it'll be as fun and awesome as Absolute Carnage, which I thoroughly enjoyed and haven't read a bad book of yet, although I haven't done a lot of the tie-ins. But that was great. And I'm looking forward to that too. So yeah, like I get if you guys aren't as excited about Empyre, it's unique enough, and the main series has cool art. It's doing interesting things, doing fun changes with its characters. I've been accused of being overly critical about these events in the past, but I feel I'm an easy sell when it does enough stuff right. It's when they get really derivative or repetitive or something like that. Now, all that being said, we are early into Empyre, and endings can change things, middles can change things because we really aren't into that. But I wouldn't recommend this comic, and unfortunately, I think I pre-ordered the whole series, so we might have some rough reviews ahead of us. But I don't think you guys hate when I dislike something. Those seem to make more interesting reviews for you, so very well, we will review it. But in a week of I got 6 books this week. I enjoyed 5 of them. I liked the 6th, but I wouldn't recommend it unless you also got all of these other books and are still wanting more. But it feels like you could do better. There's so much more out there. I can't imagine a person having read everything. I don't regret reading it. As a reviewer, I'll get the rest of the books, but I seriously debated just now whether or not I should just cancel my pre-order. Okay, there's still chat coming, but I'll just keep going through them until I lose track or whatever. Adrian's saying, I'm fine with tie-ins, just not ones like Civil War 1 and 2, Fear Itself, etc. Yeah, well, like, some of those tie-ins I liked. Civil War 1 I liked, Civil War 2 I didn't. Fear Itself varied considerably in terms of quality. And this felt like more of those weaker tie-ins, like from Civil War 2. I bring up Secret Invasion a lot because it reminds me a lot of that story. Hello, stupid robot is a great line. That page is on screen right now. And this had a couple of good moments. I will give it that. Okay. Sorry. Chat's busy. Tevi was saying, but since King in Black is coming out, I don't think this makes this event pointless. Huh? I'm hoping, I might be losing context there. King in Black is coming out, I don't think this event. Okay, I'm guessing that there's something I don't know about happening in the future, but that's fine. Sometimes it's not terrible to not be fully spoiled. Samson2328 says, how many parts will there be? Of this, there will be 3 parts of this tie-in, the X-Men tie-in. Empyre is 6 issues long. There's a bunch of standalone issues, like the Hulkling one we reviewed earlier coming out, like 3 or 4 of them. Why am I stumbling over this? There's a reading order right here. So Phase 1 is basically all the comics we've covered. There's also Empyre Spider-Man #1 and X-Men #10. So a lot of the core series like X-Men, Fantastic Four are also running concurrently while they also have tie-ins, which makes this a pretty hefty event overall. But that I don't love. And then at that point there's so many books listed. But yeah, Empyre goes up to 6. There's an epilogue book. Most of the tie-in books are 3 issues or just 1 issue long. That includes Immortal Hulk is only one issue. Captain America's 3. Invasion of Wakanda's 3. Storm Rangers 3. The Union's 3. I don't even know what half these things are. X-Men is 4. Great. That gets into what Tevye was saying about some of these feeling like cash grabs to a degree. Storm Ranger, yeah, I said that one already. Fantastic Four is 3 issues. Yeah. Squadron Supreme, I see 2. And then yeah, a couple of standalones on top of that. So it's not overweight compared to some events, but that's a lot more than I would probably prefer based on what I saw here and what I've seen in the rest of the Empyre event. I'm really hoping there's more to Empyre than just this alien stuff, like I said at some point in this review. Okay. Impulse says, I've tasked myself with reading all of the Empyre tie-ins, but after the Avengers and Lord Hulkling one, I can tell it's going to be a drag. You didn't like Hulkling? I liked Hulkling a lot. I talked about that. I thought Chib Zdarsky did a good job with it, but I'm right there with you with Avengers. If you're going through all of those, like I said, then I would probably say that like it's not the worst thing in the world. I've read some events where I tried to go through all the tie-ins and stuff like that that are way more of a chore than this one. Yeah, quite a few come to mind. Mostly some of the bad ones we've talked about so far. So I don't want to keep bringing up Secret Invasion, but I'm sure there's more. What's the oh man, Age of Ultron. That's what I was thinking of. That's a hefty one that I found a real chore to get through. I don't think I got through most of the tie-ins. Tevye is saying, doesn't X of Swords have 24 parts, which is insane? Yeah, we talked about that on another book, or another stream, and I looked it up out of sheer shock. And it is 24 parts, but that's like all the tie-ins and everything. Like, I wouldn't imagine you would need to read all 24 issues to understand that story. So, it's not that bad. It just, the way they structured it is a little weird, and maybe some people are going to feel the need to read all 24 of those books. I wouldn't recommend that. That's not really how I found Dawn of X is largely best enjoyed, except for X-Men the Core series. But we've talked about that quite a bit recently. Yeah, okay, we don't need to relitigate Civil War 2. Adrian was saying, who here wants AVP versus Star Wars now that Marvel has both? We haven't talked about that. I don't love how many properties Marvel is getting a hold of, like Disney and stuff. But that was a natural consequence I never really thought of in terms of Disney getting Fox properties. They can do interesting things about it. I just hope they don't degrade it. It's like those two franchises are like the most un-Disney things ever. So they better not mess with what makes those franchises work. That's all I gotta say. Or else we can't do anything about it, but still, it's going to tank. Tevye says, I think Spider-Man tie-in got canceled. I haven't seen any solicitations for it, but it might have just been delayed. Tevye saying, I know Empire Strike Force got canceled. That's interesting. They're just canceling these books outright, eh? I don't know anything about that, though. Yeah, I read some of the Adrian's talking about the Alien versus Predator crossovers that they've done with superheroes. I read a bunch of those actually, and there's some cool ones. I like the one with Green Lantern and Kyle Rayner. That was fun. Heavy was saying Hulkling I thought was really good. Yeah, I liked it too. And then Heavy gets into Age of Ultron, and yeah, all of that doesn't make any sense. And then okay, you're just agreeing with me there, which is fine, and I appreciate, but no point in bouncing that around stream. So yes, a bit of a disappointment in this one. I was kind of hoping for more, especially what I got out of all the other Empyre tie-ins so far. And even Jim Zub, I usually get a better experience from these comics the way I remember it. Oh, we're starting a conversation with off topic. All right. Impulse says, off topic, but I'm really enjoying all of Dawn of X. It's sad, but right now I've been getting every issue that's come out, and I'm going to get every issue for X of Swords. Buddy, I don't think that's sad, but I definitely don't. I'm right with you with House of X. Yes, sorry. For a second, I thought I said House of M. I'm right with you with House of X. I really like it. And sure, there's stronger books over other stuff. And like we reviewed Giant Size Magneto, and I think that one and Nightcrawler were pretty weak, to be honest. But overall, like I'm talking about out of dozens and dozens of post House of X comics that I've read, like 2 or 3 have been duds, and like I guess Fallen Angels has been pretty lackluster, but everything else I've really enjoyed, and I thought delivered on all the promise of House of X, and I really like it. I'm right there with you. I try and read and buy as many of those books as I can these days. Actually, and you know what? That brings us to a good next point. On that note, I got my. Ooh, I don't want to. Some of that's a work in progress. I don't want to show all those notes there. So I'm just going to leave that blank for a minute. Oh, Adrian, don't worry. We always get off topic with all these conversations. I was just laughing because Impulse Thunder brought that up when we get off topic all the time. So it's not a concern. We're good. Here, I'm gonna drop this entirely. There we go. What were we talking about? Oh yeah, so that was a pretty good segue. We're talking about X-Men books and stuff. Next week, I have at least these books being pulled and possibly more. These are the ones I can confirm I'm getting next week. It's always a bit of a wash in terms of other stuff from Marvel and DC and whether or not it's actually going to come in. But and by the way, Adrian, you're welcome to come to more of these streams and stuff because that's kind of felt like an outlet for people and even me to talk about some of these comics, and they've been great. And we're going to do these every week. But next week, we're going to be doing Pulp and Black Stars Above. I'm getting trades of those. Empyre #3, because Marvel's just belting this thing out at this point. X Factor #1 is coming out, which is exciting. I'm curious to see what happens with that. I also have ordered a poster of the cover of X Factor #1, and hopefully we'll find a way to incorporate it back there. But I don't know if it's actually coming next week, so we'll see. And X-Men #10, which is an Empyre tie-in, is coming out, but my hope is that book's going to kind of get into the portals and stuff dealing with Empyre, which could be interesting. And so far, Hickman's been pretty cool about these Empyre tie-ins, so we'll see if that holds up or not. We invested heavily in Empyre, but it really wasn't supposed to be like that. I just pre-ordered stuff that was supposed to come out in other weeks that all ended up coming out at once, I think. Or it certainly worked out that way. Whatever. But we're kind of taking a step away from Empyre, even if it is more Marvel books. I don't have any DC books on order because they didn't seem to have a lot coming out, but if there is something I missed on that solicitation or something I already ordered, then I might have just missed it or whatever. But, that's all right. So, yeah. Hey, Michael Taylor and Raphael. Sorry you guys kind of joined us near the end of the stream. We were just wrapping up, but other people posted stuff, so I might have wrapped up under false pretenses. What were you saying there, Impulse? I was mainly trying to get all of the Hickman stuff, to be honest. Massive Hickman fan, and I'm very excited for his story going on. Oh, I'm excited for X Factor. Here's a question for... Well, okay, I'll just look it up. What I'm wondering is... I don't know who's working on X Factor. I just saw the book. I like all these House of X. Oops, wrong thing to write. And I don't know who is writing this new volume and stuff. Let's see here. Oh, Leah Williams is writing it, and David Baldion is the artist. I like Leah Williams. That should be interesting. And in the world of like House of X, it looks like a cool cast of, since I got it here, Daken, Eyeboy, Northstar, Polaris, Prestige, and Prodigy. All some pretty cool characters. If Impulse Thunder was saying it's the Williams, you are correct. Michael Taylor was saying that he really liked my Fantastic Four X-Men video. To be fair, that was probably my most together review out of the ones I did this week, but I'm glad you liked it. I feel like I kind of lost my wind by Hulkling and stumbled a little bit. I haven't had the nerve to rewatch that particular one, I'm glad you liked it. For those of you joining late, I didn't like Empyre Avengers #1 as much as I've been enjoying other issues. You can go back and watch the whole thing, obviously, but suffice to say, I would recommend literally any other Empyre book before that one. And I didn't hate it, but clearly that says something in and of itself. Yes, so I'm pretty excited about X Factor, and just like it's just another notch in all of these House of X books. Hickman has talked before about whether or not there's too many of these X-Men books. I imagine they're selling so well that Marvel's justifying an expansion of this stuff. And I have to be honest with you, this is the most excited I've been about X-Men comics since ever. So I'm not against it. And at a time where DC is actually kind of slowing down in terms of the amount of ongoings they have, I think they're shifting towards doing more specials and limited runs of stuff, which I'm not actually against. Kind of cool that Marvel's expanding out and trying out all these things, especially when it's like, well, we're trying out fun stuff with the X-Men, and it's like a roller coaster every time I read most of those books. Raphael is saying, for me, this arc is mess so far. Come on, Marvel, reveal something good. DC has been on fire. Hopefully Marvel brings the heat. I'm not sure what you mean by arc. You mean Empyre? Because Empire's had some interesting twists. I said at some point during this review, I think there needs to be something a little more to it. If it can't just be another alien story, or I think my recommendations are going to dry up real quick. But it seems like there's a lot more going on. Like there's an empire of Kree and Skull unified in around Earth orbit. I don't think that's just going to go away. Yeah, Raphael's talking about Empyre. I definitely think like Avengers was weak. That Avengers book, which is a shame. Empyre Avengers #0 I found pretty good and was my first introduction to Empyre, and aside from Incoming, but I liked Empyre so far and up until this point pretty much. I'm not saying it's ruined my whole event, but I definitely didn't like this tie-in that much. Raphael saying too many universe-ending events. We've talked about that before. Yeah, that certainly feels like a problem. To be fair, this isn't universe ending. This is about Earth. And Earth is just this teeny tiny little pawn of a planet in a much bigger game. In that regard, it reminds me of Kree of Skrull War, like the first one, and, well, first one, the original event, and that's kind of interesting. That's different. I get that, like, it is just this endless barrage of like cataclysm, and I don't think that's necessary. Like really, like these events don't have to be that. The ongoing stories with superheroes don't have to be like that. That is a problem. When these stories are strong, I'm willing to kind of forgive them to a degree, but like it can't last forever. And I think we're missing something with like smaller stories, more grounded and focused on characters, and also like why don't we try doing more murder mysteries and stuff like that? Original Sin was supposed to be that, and it feels like it just evolved into a standard event. But we can have stuff like that, or make a Western event, or make a comedy one, or make, I don't know, there's a lot of genres out there that superheroes have been. We can make one more espionage focused. That's not Leviathan, or what is it called? Bendis' stupid thing. Event Leviathan? Whatever. I don't care. Uh-oh, I lost track. You guys are going fast again. Impulse was saying, because I wasn't too excited for Empyre, but I fairly enjoyed #1 more than I thought I would. You know, like, I didn't think much of it either, and it slowly won me over with details, and Fantastic Four, Ghost Rider possessing the Quinjet, you know. Like I said, I can be an easy sell if it does things like right. Empire's checking off a lot of my personal boxes, and it's not doing stupid things that other events do. Like even if they kill off a character, oh okay, like they aren't relying on a big character death in these early issues to ring some sort of bell and say, oh, it's on now. Now chat's filled with people saying Event Leviathan. I spaced on it, but I did eventually get it. Adrian was saying, I hope we get character and individual line development instead of events. Yeah, like, there's ways you can kind of do both. Joker War is kind of a good example of that, where like it's sort of internally building its thing, and I mean it's not perfect, but that's the right idea. Maybe that is still over the top and action heavy. But see, that's like a studio corporate mentality though, where everything's got to be the next big thing, and it's so dumb and so wrong, and often even if comics looked at their own sales, they get to like a new creator comes in and he brings the story back down to the ground, makes it more basic again. Sales, of course, are going to shoot up. They always do. So sometimes there's less is more. I think that's an old phrase for a reason. And these companies lose sight of that sometimes, or they just need to space it out a little more. I bet a lot of you would be more excited for Empire if this came out in like a year from now. And given that there was a whole pandemic going on, probably would have been a good idea to just delay it. Like Marvel had so many reasons to delay it. But then, you know, people like me buy all these issues. But to be fair, like I'm a reviewer. And that I've used to justify some of this stuff. If you guys don't like it, well then don't buy it. Vote with your wallet. Encourage stuff that you do like. You guys talk about series that you like and stuff. Make sure you all buy Wonder Woman Dead Earth, for example, if you really like that story. Because I really like that story. I really liked Harleen. I'm going to prove something to you guys. I got it right here. I really liked Harleen, so I have my hardcover copy here. But then, oh, I hope she's not watching, but for as a gift for somebody, I bought all 3 of the print copies as well because A, it supports the local comic book store, but you know, that communicates something, and C, because B, it communicates something, and C, it's a damn fine book, and I am happy to give it to the person I'm giving it to, which I'm only keeping quiet just because there is a small chance she's watching this and has already figured out what her gift is now for her birthday. So, which would be unfortunate. But people in my real life do sometimes watch these videos. They're not always the people I expect, and often watch it far more frequently than I expect, which is alarming. So, I sometimes I gotta be mindful of that. Uh-oh. Happened again. Impulse Thunder was saying, I do have a feeling the mystery character at the beginning of number 2 is going to be Star-Lord, since Ewing is handling Guardians. I mean, I don't know if you guys are reading Guardians, but I might be a few issues behind, but they seemed up to other stuff at the moment. Mystery figure oh, I'm looking at the wrong book. I'm blanking on the mystery figure. So I'm just grabbing my copy of Empire number 2 right here to take a quick look. Oh, that guy. Yes, there is someone piloting a mysterious ship. It could very well be Star-Lord. I didn't think of him, though. I'm trying to debate who I thought this was. I remember kind of having a thought when I first read this book. He definitely the character definitely talks about being born there, and I think that's a major hint. But I really don't know who that is. I think that's based on the way that Empire's been bringing up old characters and stuff. I assume it's more tied to that, but I could be wrong. Heavy was saying, are we getting Outlaw, which is another Marvel event? But then Impulse Thunder said Outlaw is a kind of rebrand. Yes, that's what I heard too. Raphael was saying, I think Marvel saw what was happening with Death Metal and they wanted some of that gold. That's an interesting thought. This doesn't feel like a similar story to Death Metal. Honestly, I feel like the comparable story to Death Metal is War of the Realms. If War of the Realms came out right now, I would think that was a ripoff of Death Metal. And if Death Metal wasn't Death Metal by Snyder, I would think it was a little bit, at least, a ripoff of, or well, not a ripoff, but at least it like was taking its cues and trying to do a story like that, because they both have the same thing where it's Dang. Okay. Ooh. Okay, I'll show your comment. Uh, T. Caro, I just saw your comment come in saying that you think the mystery character, and this might be a spoiler for people, because I think that's a good answer, is that it's Mantis, who's the mother of Koi. 100% I endorse that answer. I think you nailed it on the head with that. Good job, sir. That's good storytelling, or that's good. What's the word? Like literacy. Like you took the hints of the Empire number two and put it together in a way that I did not. Um, reading comprehension. That's the word I'm looking for. Jesus, of all the words, not or like phrases to stumble on. um, yeah, and then Tevi was so yeah. I don't think that either story actually ripped each other off, but War of Death Metal reminds me of War of the Realms a little bit because Earth is remade and they have this detailed map of what happened to things, and it's just this almost unhinged story with all these changes going on and stuff. But yeah, Raphael said some nice things and then some creepy things. I'm not repeating all that. Tulloch also said Hail Hydra. Oh dear, naughty naughty. And then he also said, I hate how everyone has a magical half-alive weapon now. Even Captain Marvel has one. That's my one. I liked the whole change with Captain Marvel. That's my one issue with it. It feels so similar to what's going on with Jane Foster. That actually gets into what we were talking about much earlier in the stream before I wrapped things up 10 minutes ago, where like they need to coordinate with each other better because it's not so much that they're repeating the same idea, it's that they're trying the same idea twice without realizing it at the same time. And that's where you need a good editor overlooking all these things to say, hey, we got two women being rebranded in different roles that are going to corrupt them with semi-sentient weapons. Maybe we should space this out a little bit. Maybe we should change one of these stories. And it's the same problem with Empire, where Scarlet Witch, as a major character in one of the tie-ins, is showing up in two tie-ins in a way that doesn't make sense. And we talked a lot about that earlier. But Adrian said the mystery figure should be Howard the Duck. It's almost definitely Mantis. Was she born on Earth? I don't actually know that character that well, like especially the comics version. Let me take a look. If she is. Oh, yeah. Born in Vietnam. Well, there you go. Goddamn, Tikaro. That's a good call. Adrian is saying foreshadowing. Well, see, they even like talk about Mantis and Swordsman raising Koi in that same book. You might have figured out something that Al Ewing didn't want you to. And okay, that's cool. That's a cool twist. I'm glad she's part of the story. I was kind of hoping more would get into like her time raising Koi and stuff like that. I'm glad that she's showing up. That fits awfully well. Impulse was saying death metal reminds him a lot of Secret Wars 2015, saying it's very uncanny. Yes, I would say that's a stronger resemblance even than War of the Realms. Secret Wars is very different from death metal though in tone and tenor, but it is the same broad idea. I would feel Snyder might have even borrowed some ideas from Secret Wars with the goal of rewriting and expanding the DC multiverse. That's not terrible. Clearly, he put his own creative energy into the story. So if he kind of used the framework of it to be like, all right, we're going to break down all of reality and make it crazy for a couple of months before we build it up again. Cool. That's what he should do. Tolak was saying, how about Superboy Prime and Shazam? Yes, I promised that book, but you are going to have to get used to the previews just being previews because that book is coming out later apparently. I do have it on order because I am curious as hell about that. And I haven't actually been caught up on the Shazam books, but seems like a good jumping on point. So stay tuned for that. I am 100% talking about that. When I saw that in the solicitations, I was like, we're ordering this. And we at Comic Island did. Tevye was saying, I think Secret Wars 2015 was good, but man, oh man, Marvel messed up that story by making the aftermath pointless. Was it pointless? Miles Morales is now part of the main Marvel canon. Uh, there was this huge. The thing about Secret Wars is it was the payoff to like years of comics to Time Runs Out. It didn't have to promise like any future stuff going forward because it paid something off that had been built up for years and opened up a new direction for Marvel to let them go in whatever the direction they wanted to with Avengers and stuff like that. I I, I disagree with your thesis there, Tavia. Politely and whatever, but I think I don't feel that way about it. I think it was resolved. Secret Wars by itself in 2015 honestly isn't that good. I feel it really needs Time Runs Out to inform it and to be this huge book upon book upon book, long ass storyline with like random references to from other Marvel comics like happening around those years, Infinity, Original Sin, and Axis happening all during that time period that also feeds into Time Runs Out. And then the payoff to that being reality being remade, Doom having this amazing triumph after being such a major figure in Time Runs Out, and it all ultimately resolving Doom's character a little bit. And then he got this whole direction for a while that was different in the main Prime Marvel universe for a bit. And then, things faded away and they went in their own direction. I think that was the goal of the story, to bring about a new direction. That's my opinion. Tevia is also saying, I'm hoping Secret Wars give us changes of Spider-Man and the promise for his mage to return. Well, my friend, you got your hopes up in the wrong way. I never, ever, ever thought they were going to do that. I've gotten my hopes up more with the stuff of Nick Spencer flirting with it until they just stalled out, and they might do that one day, but honestly, I don't care anymore. They burnt me out on Spider-Man or something. I don't know. I think that Mary Jane being married to Spider-Man isn't just going to fix things. It isn't going to make that Sins Rising stuff less boring. Put it that way. Spider-Man's got more problems going on these days, and maybe that has to do with Nick Spencer. I don't know. I thought Dan Slott was the problem. Raphael is saying, and I have noticed Marvel has not been expanding. The only thing we got was the one below all. You don't think Marvel's been expanding with like Null, House of X? God, what else? Like everything just feel. Again, I kind of disagree. Depends on your time frame, I guess. Maybe in more recent months, but you got to give them credit for like a little bit of leeway. They haven't been publishing in a while, so it probably feels like they've stalled out more than they actually have. But I think there's more to them than it just being like, I don't know, like they're not expanding and stuff. Like they're trying new things. They're not necessarily introducing new characters, but like Marvel's got so many characters. When's the last time Swordsman's been like a major character in anything, let alone a major Marvel event, which I can say authoritatively has never happened in the modern age. So that seems expansive. Seems like they're trying out new stuff with alien plant people. I don't know how you can't look at House of X and not see expansion everywhere at all angles. Tulloch was saying seeing Spider-Man pull up on Daredevil was pretty badass. Also, the Iron Man Daredevil helmet in the last page looked badass too. Yeah, like they do. Daredevil's cool with Zardsky right now. I'm not fully caught up with that stuff, but I read the first book and really liked it, and have the second book on digital form, and we'll probably enjoy reading that too. Tevi was saying, well, we are getting Spider-Man, Sins Rising, and plus the Kindred stuff. Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, I didn't like the last Spider-Man book that I reviewed. We don't have to relitigate all of that, but I feel like, I don't even know. Like, you could snap away one more day, and what would that fix? Not the issues that I had with Sins Rising so far, that's for sure. Impulse Thunder is saying, I really enjoy these chats about comics. It's not often I get to have them. Yeah, let's talk about that for a minute. So, we've been wanting to do, like, I like these streams. I'm getting a little bit of pushback from people about, like, hey, like, you should be doing your recaps and stuff. They're not going away, but that stuff takes work and time and energy and all this stuff. These reviews are very informal. I don't have to do much for them other than read the book, get some artwork, and plunk it all on stream, which is great because that actually frees me up to do more long-term projects, to focus on other stuff, and that sort of thing. So behind the scenes all this week, I've been working on the top 10 video. It's like ready to record, and hopefully over the weekend I can get it done. But even if not, I had stuff going on, so I'm catching up on sleep and stuff. But once I'm fully rostered again, these streams can happen every week while I can still work on those things. And there's less of pressure on Joey and I to try and do recaps and reviews of like the rate that comics come out. We were never able to keep up. Even at our peak, like I dreamed of being able to put out 3 videos in a day, and I actually achieved that once or twice, and it was back-breaking work. That was like a 10-hour workday just to try and do it, and DC didn't like that. That ended up giving us a lot of trouble, which has damaged the crap out of our algorithms and stuff. That happened years ago, and we still feel that to this day. So these reviews are a great way to kind of bridge the gap and let us talk about things as news comes out and stuff like that, which further allows us to kind of focus on other content that I think you guys want, but we never have time for. So these streams are here to stay, but they aren't replacing anything. They're just filling in something that we've always should have done, because we're a review channel and we lost that sense of weekly reviews. We used to at least be able to do like 3 or 4 out a week. That is a drop in the bucket compared to comics. Now we're able to do like 6 or 7 so far on average. It really just depends on what I feel like reviewing. And then the other fun thing to do is, you can read other stuff too, right? So as I kind of finish other books, and I might dig into some of my past blogs, we might kind of fill in reviews here and there, because this is going to be a nice way to kind of bridge content. So I say all that because we shouldn't worry too much about, this replacing anything or this losing out on content. One thing it might replace, and I don't expect a lot of pushback on this, some of the other streams we were doing and some of the other stuff that I was playing around with. I like the character things, but restricting that to maybe like once a week might be better for everybody. And those character things are surprisingly tiring, because I am constantly improvising, constantly trying to be in character, running a stream, playing a video game all at once. And some of those voices are a little rough on my throat, which I've very transparently talked about during those streams, but you can hear it if you listen to the beginning of like any Batman stream. I got like a clear sense of character at the start, and it sounds completely different and so close to my speaking voice at the end, because I just can't keep pushing it after a while. I'm getting better at it. The more I use my diaphragm, the more stamina I have through these things. But sometimes I fall out of that habit, and my Batman voice actually, I more naturally want to use my throat to do it, which is the worst way to use it. And yeah, anyways. Whoa, where are we? Oh, you guys started talking a lot. Raphael was saying, Raphael said some nice, and Tevye were saying some nice things about how life comes first, and they understand what I'm saying, which I appreciate. Tulloch was saying Venom, the maker of Virus and Null, he's loving all of that. Me too. Oh my god, that last story arc, like the start of it, that last issue that came out with Venom was so cool. I can't wait for the next Venom comic. Tevye was saying I could actually make Peter Parker and Mary Jane finally getting married, and hopefully give us Peter and Mary Jane, their daughter, alive and kicking. See, that would be cool. That would get me excited. If you just, I mentioned the snap your fingers and erase one more day. I just assumed they'd be married. If you snap their fingers, all of a sudden they are married and there's a kid involved, and we're like getting the actual, what was it called? That run they had that was this thing that we're talking about, and I did a whole review on it. Whatever, you guys will tell me. But yeah, doing that would be neat. That's a huge change for Spider-Man. My only issue, and this isn't Marvel's fault, but it's not going to look good for them. Superman's got a kid now. Batman's got a kid now. It just feels like Spider-Man will end up following them. And that's how a lot of people are going to see it. And I can't defend that. Renew your vows. Thank you, Tevye. That's the only thing that makes it weaker, is that DC basically beat them to the punch because they dragged their heels on this. Marvel could have been ahead of DC and Marvel on this count by like a full decade. But they screwed it up. um, feel like I was just saying some nice things about May Parker. Hey, May Parker's a great character. Um, thank you for joining. Oh, okay. Adrian said goodbye, but I missed it. I think, unless you're still here. Thanks for joining and talking with me, Adrian. That was great. Um, you might see this later, or you might still be here. You know, if you ever want to guarantee your stuff, your chat's being said, there are means to do that. Um, Raphael said, yeah, I am perfectly aware that it's our channel and we can make whatever content we like. I don't know. Another reviewer was talking on Twitter recently though about like we shouldn't just review the things we like, and that's why I ended up picking up the Batman comic that I reviewed earlier that I really liked. So, sometimes going out of your comfort zone is a good idea. Sometimes reviewing stuff that you know is going to be bad is a good idea. That's why I'm probably not going to cancel the Avengers books, even though I just not recommended the first one, because we should take ourselves out of our comfort zone. But also, my job is to analyze comics, and while my feelings are relevant and absolutely will burn me out if I don't take them into account, I do take into consideration what you guys want to see, what you guys like, and that sort of thing. Like, that matters. I don't think it's irrelevant, and I don't fully agree with the idea that, like, oh, we always have to be true for ourselves and stuff. Impulse is saying, yeah, like there's a challenge in running media and stuff, and it's nice to have a community to talk to. We don't need to get into all that stuff. YouTube and all this stuff are tricky algorithms. I brought it up because people ask sometimes or get weird ideas about like our subscriber count relative to the current views, but you can go through our view count and see where it happened and when and how that all went down. I gotta tell you guys, most YouTubers at our level struggle in the same way, and for those that really experienced similar stuff that we had, most of the ones that I know quit outright. But I think that's because they had an idea about their YouTube channel that Joey and I never really had. Where while we take Comic Island seriously, and we do largely run it like a business, I don't think either of us ever had illusions about this being able to support us full time, and we were a long, long way from ever getting to that level, and even longer now. We have some plans to try and maybe consolidate our stream or like our viewer base a little bit, try and maybe get like more active, if smaller crew. That would be better for us. We both agree. And we want to kind of integrate Patreon better into our day-to-day content because we haven't been. I kind of passed that off to Joey, and then he got busy being a full-time stay-at-home dad in the middle of a pandemic and laid off, so he's got other stuff to worry about right now, which is why you guys haven't heard from him as recently. But he's still working on those Thor videos, so don't worry. Tevye, and he's fine. He's just, there's a lot going on. Tevye saying Joe Quesada messed everything up with Spider-Man. I think Joe Quesada did the best he could, and it's more correct to blame people like Ike Perlmutter. He's also saying he loves Mayday Parker because I like how I gave her a fun shout out. Annie is typically the daughter that currently emerges out of Mary Jane and Peter Parker based on Renew Your Vows, which Tevye was saying. She also has a younger brother named Benji. Mayday Parker is kind of an alternate continuity thing where Peter and Mary Jane would have had that child much farther in the future, although that timeline's relative because the MC2 universe came around in like the 90s and stuff, so their future would have been present day us. But Marvel doesn't work that way. There's a rotating time slide and whatever. I love Mayday Parker. She would be cool to see in more stuff. She does show up in things, Spider-Verses and stuff like that. I really liked her original series and stuff, and this is just a cool take on an alternate character and bringing in things to the future. Hey Impulse, thanks for joining us for like an hour. It was fun. We'll try and do streams. It's hard for me to announce a time because it really depends on how quick I can read the books and time things out with like my work schedule and stuff. But pretty consistently, they're going to happen Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, mostly Wednesday and Thursday, mid-afternoon to early evening Eastern Standard Time. So for some of you, you're going to have to calculate, we'll say between like noon and 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, so that you guys can make a conversion that I can't. I don't really know the other time zones that well. I used to know Joey's really well, but we don't have to coordinate that closely anymore. So I've lost track of it. I think they're 3 hours ahead or ahead. So if you're in Pacific time, that's about 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., which is a rough time period for you guys. We'll try and broaden it for you. Unfortunately, most of our viewers are online at that time, and we like to try and, cater to as many of them as possible. So that's the great compromise we're all going to have to deal with. I did, because my instinct is to try and stream at different times so different people around the world can do it, but it makes more sense to me to try and maximize it for the most people. If we can't be on 24 hours a day, we can't be on for 24 hours a day, we'll try and find a good time for people as best we can. Thanks for joining me, Impulse. I sounded off on Empyre Avengers #1 half an hour ago. So I think that might be a good time to end it. Don't get me wrong. It was fun to talk with you guys. I always like doing it. These streams are kind of funny because one or two of them we just start getting pulled into conversation about other things, and that leads to someone bringing up a different topic, or me to bring up a different topic. Oh, no wonder you kind of struggle with us, Raphael. You're on a rough time period. We'll try and accommodate. I have found that it is shifting later, which shifts later with you, in terms of when our viewers are active. As the pandemic is easing, I suspect we'll be able to go later into the evening, I should say, which means that you'll be able to watch streams more into the evening too. So I will keep that in mind. I didn't really think about that. The downside of that, though, is the later we get, the less our European viewers can watch. So you gotta understand that there is this debate, and we have a lot of people from the UK watch our videos and stuff, and there's a big comic market there, and it's not so much I want to cater to the market, I want them to be able to participate. And I know a lot of European viewers struggle with this, with other channels and stuff, because a lot of us horrible North Americans exist on a weird timeline relative to you guys, and a lot of the streams end up being published very early or very late into the day for you guys, which sucks. And then as for Asia, it's like the opposite land in terms of time zones, and it's a wash. I lose track at that point. I don't really know when I stream in Australia or New Zealand. So maybe sometimes do it for a good time. I think a good time for Australians and New Zealanders is like 3 or 4 in the morning for me. So it's got to happen somewhere around the world. Someone gets the short end of the stick. We will try and keep that in mind. I do potentially want to do like a marathon thing one day. Like maybe when we kind of build up our streaming audience a little bit, we can try and do something fun, or like a fundraiser or something like that. I've been very nervous to do a fundraiser because I don't know how much I want to bilk you guys for money. I don't know how much we can actually raise. And if it gets low, then I'll feel obligated to make a bigger donation myself. I don't have money right now. It's not that I'm between money at the moment. I have a good job with good income, but had some pretty hefty car expenses, so I got nothing in the tank at the moment. So that dampens things. But okay, now we're getting too off topic. We're getting personal, and the unfortunate thing about that is it implies more financial difficulty than I'm actually in. I have been a frontline worker since the beginning of this, so I've never lost I have lost some income, but not too much. And I do get hazard pay, which helps to mitigate the amount of lost income. So compared to other people in other situations, like Joey got straight up laid off, and yeah, you don't have to worry about me, and I don't think you really have to worry about Joey because his wife's got employment and income still. He's got some income still, and here in Canada, we have a pretty good system for people that have been laid off. In terms of them still having a stable income, even more so because Joey has two children who are dependent on him. So we're good. Don't worry about us. I hope you guys are doing well out there. I know things are not nearly as easy over down south. My heart goes out to you guys. I got nothing for you. The only thing okay. Yeah, Raphael is saying you can always watch when you get home. Yeah, and I've said that to you before, but I've started to be like, well, I get your frustration because it's more fun to engage with it live. So that's why I was like, oh, like I didn't say it this time because it's like I gotta stop saying that because it's mean. I try and give as much notice as purpose. Caesar Acosta is saying the sound effect is on purpose. What sound effect? You guys hearing something? No. If you're hearing a sound effect, you shouldn't be hearing anything. If you're hearing a bus go by or something like that, I can only soundproof that window so well. So, like a car alarm went off right when I started the stream. It's an echo? I can do this. That might help. It's like an echo. That does seem to happen over time on my streams. I hadn't noticed it in a while. Oh, right, I just unplugged the speakers. Damn it. Well, I'll listen to that later and take a look. I thought I got rid of that stupid friggin' thing. Okay. Auto-tune? Okay, I know what that means. We had that problem before. No, it's the right mic. It sounds auto-tuney? Okay, hold on a second. Since I got you guys on here. Oh, Jesus, that's terrible. Hold on a second. Since I got you guys on here. Okay. Well, that's wrong. That... It's cool though. Okay. Who's been on here for a while? Has it been like that for a while? Raphael, I guess it's down to you, because a lot of other people have left. Or Tevia. I mean, I can check this later, but I'm going to wait for an answer for that. That's frustrating. I thought I fixed that, because we used to get more of an echo, especially over stream, but I was using a different mic for that. I thought switching it over seemed to have fixed the echo. Now that does not appear to be the case. It's cool though. It sounds pretty bad to me. Oh, here. I know how I can check this. Gotta use the other stream. I'm sure you guys are gonna answer me. There's always that lag. No, started about 10 minutes ago. Thank you. Chikaro. Okay. Noted. I think I can fix that, but only by hopping or... Okay, this might sound... Okay. You got headphones on, pull them out. Okay, well, let's not do that then, because I don't want to accidentally hurt someone's ears or something. We're futzing around with timing like that. I can test that on my own end, on my own time. I think that's a good point to end, especially if I sound weird. So, thanks for watching a lot, guys. It was cool to talk with everybody. I will look into this. It's always a bit of a wrestling match. Actually, hang on. There's one thing I can try without unplugging the microphone. Oh, there's that button. Where's the... The way to filter my audio a bit. It doesn't really say. Okay, well, if it wasn't going before, yeah, thanks guys. And start singing. No, I think we're good. But yeah, I'll see you guys next time. I already went over the comics. We'll hopefully get something out over the weekend. Weekends are a bit of a wash for me, but I have a day off, so hopefully I can work with that. But yeah, thanks again, guys. This is the 8th or 9th time I've signed off on this stream, but it was fun talking with everybody, so I'll see you next time here on Comic Island.